Welcome to the Love Your Real Life podcast. I'm Faith Lauterbach, and this is a space to help you heal, rebuild, and create a life you truly love, even if it looks different than you imagined. Each week, I'll be sharing tools, encouragement, and real conversations about what it means to move forward after betrayal, heartbreak, or simply life not going as planned. I am honored to walk alongside you and help you love your real life. Well, hello and welcome back to the show. Before we jump into today's conversation, I want to give you a little context for this episode. This one is really fun and special. Over the past few years, I've had the opportunity to go on 3 backpacking trips with the same group of women. We traveled to Oregon and backpacked the Three Sisters Loop. We traveled to Minnesota, part of the Superior Hiking Trail. And then last year, we went to Colorado and backpacked a portion of the San Juan Mountains. Each of these trips have been physically challenging, for sure. But more than that, they've been deeply grounding, healing, and connecting. There's something about stepping away from your normal routine, carrying everything you need on your back, and spending days in nature that creates space for real conversations. And this is just not something that happens in our everyday life. So today I'm bringing this conversation to you. In this episode, I'm joined by these incredible women, and we're going to be talking about what these trips have meant to us physically, mentally, emotionally. So you're going to hear from Jen, Katie, Christina, and Wendy, and myself. You're going to hear different perspectives, experiences, and the way that this kind of trip and challenge has shaped and changed each of us. I hope you find this episode feels like you are just sitting around with us, listening in on an honest and real conversation. All right. I can't wait to hear what you think about this. Please reach out and let me know. All right. Enjoy. Hello, everybody. Welcome. Okay, we are going to get started into our questions. And here's the first one. When was your first backpacking trip? And what made you say yes? And also, did any part of you hesitate before going? Question mark. So we're going to start with Jen. So you have the floor, Jen.
Okay. So my first backpacking trip was in 2017. I had an office mate that had spent years backpacking and would tell me all about his adventures and just the awesomeness of unplugging and being on trail. And he had all the gear and he was so generous to loan it out as we needed, to kind of get us started, and would just kind of mentor me. We would go do practice hikes and things to get my comfort level up. And so my aunts and I made the decision to do a trip through Zion National Park. So it was the Trans Zion Traverse, and it was about 48 miles. And then we just kind of fell in love with the experience. I don't know that we had any hesitation. My husband was very doubtful that we were going to make it, but we did it and we fell in love. And so we committed then to annual hikes and have done 1 to 2 each year. So we've done the Trans Catalina Trail, the Tahoe section of the PCT, where we were joined by her 2 sister-in-laws, and then Wonderland. And then in 2021, my aunt was not able to go, so I reached out to Christina, who I had worked with the past, and she agreed to section the Appalachian Trail with me through Shenandoah National Park, which was kind of a turning point because she then said, "Hey, this is really great. We should start inviting some more people." And Wendy had already kind of said, like, I'm going to make this happen at some point. And so like all the pieces just kind of came together and the Maroon 6 was created. So we have hiked now the Three Sisters outside of Bend, Oregon, the Superior Hiking Trail near Duluth, and then the San Juan Mountains in Colorado. And then I've also done a couple others with Marty, like the Gila Wilderness and the Tahoe Rim Trail. So,
Awesome.
yep.
Yes, Jen is our fearless leader, the one that started us all on this journey. So thank you, Jen. Okay, so I think next will be Christina. You guys, the order switched a little bit, so sorry if I'm. So Christina, what do you got to say?
Right. So, like Jen said, my first backpacking trip was in 2021, which thank you for saying the year because I could not remember. Um, and I had just saw Jen post something on Facebook about needing to get some miles in. And one of my favorite places when I lived in Omaha was the Hitchcock Trails. And so I said, yeah, I would love to go. I'll bring my dogs. And then after that, I still wanted to go, even though I was like, dang, she has a 40-pound backpack on her back. And I'm just kind of chilling. So I said yes. I was like, okay, let's do this. And so I kind of got some gear and was thinking about that. I went on some practice hikes with Faith, with Jen, and got my backpack stolen out of the back of my car before we even went. So that was fun. And then we went to do the Shenandoah and the Appalachian. And there was not hesitation until the night before. So the night before, I had a really high fever. And I was like, "Oh my gosh, I can't tell Jen this. Like, I can't back out." Like, I look back and I was like, because there was no, I was really excited. And then, I was like, "Okay, I'm gonna go do this." My fever broke. I was packed, ready to go. And then we got there, and then some hesitation set in because we ended up getting a ride from, her name was Christina. She was like a trail person. Um, she took us an hour out of our way and not where we were supposed to be. So there was that. And then I'm like, okay, I'm a little anxious because this woman that was supposed to know where we're going didn't know where we were going. So it started us out later, and I still wasn't feeling great. And the first start of the trail was almost directly straight up. So I would say that was only my hesitation. Um, and then that one, it continued because I still was like, ugh, I don't feel great. The first day after that, but then once I started to feel better, then I was like, "This is fun." So that would be my first experience.
Awesome. Thanks, Christina. Okay, Katie, you are next up.
All right. Well, I feel like I'm kind of still in my infancy of multi-day hiking and packing. My first one was in 2023 when we did the Three Sisters Wilderness Trail in Oregon. My connection to this opportunity was Wendy. When she had talked to Jen about it, she threw the opportunity my way, and I would absolutely have to say, yeah, there was initial hesitation. There's the part where this is just going to be something that would be really physically challenging, and also mentally challenging. And kind of questioning, am I ready to take this on? I think there's that other element of just the time commitment, not only the time in training, but when you think about the time away from family or from work and kind of convincing yourself or giving yourself permission to take that time for things that are important. I did take maybe a week to be like, yes, I need to do this. I think I found myself at a point in my life where I really was encouraging myself to say yes to opportunities that appealed to my interests, uh, and spending time in nature and spending time in nature with good company um, ranks right up there. So even though there was some initial hesitation, and I have to laugh at myself because this group knows all too well, every year there's this like little degree of hesitation I let linger for a minute before being like, why am I even doubting that this is going to happen? Because, I said yes with no regret. And I will continue to say yes because it's just something that I really enjoy doing.
Right, Wendy.
So, yeah, this takes me way back. My first experience was in 2008 with an old high school friend. And she had asked me if I wanted to join her to go climb Mount Kilimanjaro. And there was no hesitation. Yes, this is a once in a lifetime opportunity, and I will do whatever it takes to make it happen. And it's easy to remember that year because that's the same year I got married. And so we happened to go over Christmas. And so my first Christmas was not spent as with my husband as a newlywed. It was spent in a tent by myself, well, with my friend. But, we had Sherpas, and so it was a great experience, but it was a very different experience than what we've done the last few years, and it's always been a bucket list of mine to do this type of backpacking trip, especially on the West Coast, and so Jen, I know all these years as she's talked about it, and I'm like, "Oh, I just wanna do that, I wanna do that," but with that time in my life, there was some hesitation with family and kids and feeling okay pulling myself away from that. And I think it was Brock's birthday party. You were talking about your new trip and I was like, "Oh, I should do this, it's just it would be so amazing." I was like, "Yep, I'm doing it." I called Katie and said, "You should come with me. You need to do this with me." Um, and I think the rest is history. It's just been a great experience every year.
Well, I kind of forgot that I would need to also answer these questions. So here it goes. I'm glad you guys said the year. What did you say was our first Oregon 2023?
Well, if we've gone on 3 and last year was 2025.
So it would have been 2023, huh?
Yep.
Yep,
The
you're
2023.
right.
Okay. 2023 was our Oregon trip. That was my first time doing any kind of multiple day experience like this. And I definitely hesitated. I guess I'll say I didn't hesitate when Christina asked me. I said, absolutely yes. But after that, I hesitated. And I think hesitate isn't a strong enough word for what I felt. I felt terrified, especially like Christina said the night before. For me, it wasn't because I had a fever or anything like that. For me, it was just this realization of like, oh my gosh, this is so unknown of what's going to happen, and just like the managing of how certain things were going to happen, like filtering my water. I was like, am I going to be able to do it? Using the bathroom, like that, just all those things. I just had no idea how they would actually happen. I remember the plane ride out there. I was like praying most of the time, journaling, reading, and I'm so glad that I did not let that hesitation and fear stop me because just like you guys have all said, it's been such an amazing experience. So,
With hesitation, for me, there still continues to be a hesitation each time, but it's different. And so the more time we've spent in nature and on the trail, I think you just gain a greater understanding and appreciation for nature, and you understand how fierce it can be, and it's the unknown, what could happen out there? Would somebody get injured or, um, sick or, you just don't really know the possibilities of different things that could happen, and I think that comes across to me as some hesitation before each trip now.
yeah, I agree, Wendy. I agree. That feels true for me too each year because it is, even though we've done this before, it is a different experience each time in a different place. There's different terrain, there's different weather, there's different, you know, things that could be dangerous. There's just it's always a totally different experience each time. So I agree, Wendy, that there is hesitation. And I also agree with Katie. Like I feel like I'm in my infancy stage of this experience too. So yeah, thank you, Wendy. That was a good point. Anybody else have anything they want to add to that first part? before we move on? Okay. Question number 2 is, and this can be like, you can sum it up for all of your experiences if there's, examples you want to give, but what did you think the experience would be and how was that different from reality? Like maybe especially like your first one. What did you think was going to happen versus what actually happened when you were living it? And Jen, you are up.
So I knew what I hoped it would be, but I also held some fear just as the person that's like in charge of doing all the things and like having everything organized. And then I can't tell you how much anxiety I had about your pepper allergy on our first trip too. I was like, what if she has anaphylaxis on the trail and then her stuff doesn't work? And then like that was like huge. Um But
I'm
thankfully I,
sorry.
like no, I asked questions and then, like, was able to bring myself down a little. Um, but I just hold a little bit of anxiety about, like, making sure that I'm doing my best to, like, make it the best experience for everyone. And then it's honestly just been, like, the most amazing experience. So it's better than I could have ever hoped it would be having, like, a group going together. So,
Yeah. Thanks, Jen. Okay, Christina.
I didn't really know. I was like, "Oh, sure. Why not?" And then I am not a person that likes to, and this is kind of evolved, but I'm not a person that likes to know too much because then I can overthink it. And so, and that prevents me from me staying in the moment. But I'm like, I need to also not be a liability. So I've always thought of that too. So I think the first time was so wildly different than the last times because I was like, "Man, this is kinda bougie," because we didn't actually after the first night, didn't put up a tent because they had huts on the Appalachian Trail. They had bathrooms, and it was way more social than I thought it would be. I liked that part too. I was like, "Oh, okay." I talked to my students about this. It's like with their, practicum sites, I'm like, Instagram versus reality. Like, of course, I'd seen things on Instagram, and I'm like, "Oh, yeah, I'm gonna look so stunning, and, it's gonna be epic views all the time." And the reality of that is, yes, there's stunning views and there's beautiful things along the way, but there's also just a putting the one foot in front of the other too that happens. So,
mhm.
yeah. And so every trip has had a little bit of different expectations, and then the reality has just been different. I will also say, like, I during this experience I've also done other backpacking trips with different people, like my younger sister. So backpacking with, um, women that are younger and more, I don't wanna say party like because 'cause they're not, but they were like, "Oh, let's bring this along, like, let's bring a bottle of wine." I'm like, "Do we have room for that in the pack?" But I'm not carrying it, so I guess bring it. So, um, I would say that each trip kind of that expectations versus reality, and then sometimes it's just been it's actually blown the expectations has been blown out of the water. It's been lovely, so
Yeah, Christine, you do such a good job of staying in the moment.
I try.
Yeah, you do a good job of it. All right. And Christina is my tent mate whenever we have a tent. So just as an FYI. Okay, Katie, you are up.
Um, Probably initial thoughts was I was thinking that this is gonna be endless hours of me, like, cussing under my breath, climbing up a hill with my body aching. No, I tease. But I do think that when I was thinking about what this experience was before actually hitting the trail, there was a lot of thought of that physical challenge and, like, not necessarily the toll it was gonna take on my body, but again, just, like, what I was gonna have to do to kinda just work through this being one of the more physically tasking things that I've taken on. And I will say that while we were out there, absolutely, it was was challenging and you had to find that perseverance. And like Christina said, sometimes it was just taking those next few steps, but it was absolutely so much more. I think the reality on the trail is that time really does slow down, which I appreciate, which is one of the things that I enjoy most about it. I also think about how we are in very remote locations. That first year, we were not going to have service. We had the benefit of having the satellite radios with us. So we did have a safety net in that if we needed to reach out for help or to check in with people. But I really do enjoy that piece of truly unplugging and being present in whatever environment we are on a given hike. Because again, the experience to me, like, yes, is the challenge. It is the journey, the trail, the destination, the accomplishment of finishing the route. Uh, but really, the magic happens in all those small moments, those unexpected detours along the way or breaks. Scenery we expected, but scenery we didn't expect. And uh, I just can't say enough about how much I just really enjoy being able to carve out that time to really just soak it all in um, while we're out there.
Yeah, thanks, Katie. I agree. Okay, Miss Wendy, you're up.
I don't know that I really had any expectations for the first trip. I think I was just so excited because it was something that I had always wanted to do that it didn't matter. And as I reflected on, different things I learned on that trip and things I took away from that trip, definitely that sense of accomplishment that Katie talked about and all the physical challenges. I think really what that trip did for me was lead to expectations for other trips, if
Mm.
that makes sense. So it's like, okay, I can do this. This was an amazing experience. And so what's next? And so building up some of those expectations and also just some physical goals, which I've never been a super goal-oriented person in that way before, and so that's been refreshing for me to learn something new about myself with
Mhm.
loving different challenges.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that, Wendy. I would say I had no idea what to expect, but what I was really looking forward to was really just having to worry about like what was just right in front of us. Like just life is just so, I feel like there's so many plates spinning all the time that you have to manage and think about all these things. And with backpacking, like before I even did it, I was just like just being unavailable to be reached, to only be worrying kind of about myself and our group and what we immediately needed. Um, and I'll say that that lived up to it. Like I totally felt that way, and that is something I look forward to each year that we do this, is just that I know I don't in my life ever have an experience that I am not reachable and that I don't have to manage a bunch of other things that are going on. So there's just something that's very, very like healing about having that time that you just can reflect on. There's times like when we're all hiking together that we are not talking, we're all just kind of inward thinking or reflecting. And being able to do that is just such a cool experience. So yeah, that's what I would say. Does anybody have anything else to share about that before we go on to number 3? Okay. So number 3 is backpacking is obviously physically demanding. Um, what would you each say has been the most physical experience that you have had backpacking?
Um, I'd say it's a toss-up between the Gila wilderness and the, like, hundreds of stream crossings where we at one point had to swim across with our packs on. And then day 2 on the Three Sisters loop, um, having to go up, down, around all the things, like hundreds of fallen trees. Um, so, I mean, I think we were great at, like, still somehow being able to maintain humor through the craziness of that day. And looking back now, I think of ourselves as, like, still being positive even through all of it, which is so crazy. But this experience, showed us, like, that we can really take on anything that the trails threw at us, I think. So, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Christina?
I was trying to narrow it down, but like one of the things I keep going back to that first trip. It was physically challenging because of I didn't feel good. So it taught me like in my regular life, like if I'm not at my optimal health, like I can still do hard things and maybe I should rest at the same time. But it's like figuring out how to navigate that. And then I would say there was also, when I did the Catalina, trail with my sister, there was literally one section where I remember, like, my body, it was just straight up, and, I had some blisters. That's kinda been a theme for me sometimes too, but I just wanted to sit down. I literally wanted to remember this vividly. I wanted to sit down in the middle and just cry. 'Cause I was like,
Mm.
"I'm never gonna get to the top." Like, and here's my sister and one of her friends just bebopping along, but one of her other friends ended up behind me, and my sister came back down and took her backpack and not mine. Still resentful about that, I think. But, um, but when the physically I made the challenge, I got to the top of the hill, and honestly, nature rewarded me with, it was the most beautiful rainbow. So, I was like, "Okay,
Mm,
I see you. I see that I wanted to sit down and cry, but here I am." So,
yeah, awesome. Thanks, Christina. Okay, Katie.
I am going to put a second vote in for day 2, uh, out on our Oregon Trail. Um, I think day 2 started as what should have been a pretty straightforward stretch of that trail, right? We had a really good sense of the different terrain we were going to go through, and generally what to expect. But I think it was just that hard learned lesson of be ready for anything because. As mentioned, I mean, I think we started that day in a little bit of rain, which is not the worst thing, but it is it's an additional complication. Um, yeah, and then we had the down trees. With the down tree, sometimes you lose sight of trail, and on a switchback, we got lost. Um, and I think that that was one of the first true tests of us as a group. And to give a little bit of background, because I don't know if we've acknowledged this a whole lot yet, but I mean, we were a group of 6 women together where everyone knew someone, but not everyone knew everyone before that trip. I had gone on one hike with Christina. Um, I didn't know it at the time that I did know Faith previously through professional connections, but we had never done anything on the trail together before. And so we were really trusting one another in this situation, being lost in the woods, uh, to kind of work together to get ourselves back on track. I think one thing that I appreciate so much about this group is that we are all strong, independent, caring women, but we are reasonable. We're all pretty even keel, and we all bring such interesting and diverse skill sets to the table. And so, in this moment that could have gone downhill very quickly, we were able to work together to, like I said, literally get back on track. We then had miles and miles of more down trees. We had that impending storm coming in. But again, we found that right balance of allowing rest where rest was needed, but also still motivating us to know that we needed to get to camp before it got dark so that we could settle in. So that was, I mean, it was a strenuous day, but I think more than one of us could say that once we survived that, we knew we could take on quite a bit. At the end of that day, I remember once we set up camp, every move I made came with a sound. My body was just exhausted. It was fatigued. There were lots of grunts, uh, but I wouldn't change it. I look back on that day with fond memories, again, of just what we were able to get through together. So, uh, I think another lesson for that, Jen, you had mentioned earlier one thing that um, you focus on and that I do think gives you some anxiety, but also gives you a great sense of pride is doing a lot of the planning of bringing people together and making sure that we're having these positive experiences. And we so appreciate, that you helped introduce so many of us to this and helped build our confidence based on your experience. But I do think day two, again, was just a great lesson of like, we don't want any one person to feel like they have to take on the weight of being responsible for this team. We all are players in these experiences, and we all have the strengths, and different skill sets to help us get through tricky situations.
Um, Definitely. Thanks, Katie.
I'm over
Okay,
here.
Wendy.
I'm over here laughing to myself because, yeah, day two, definitely challenging. Fond memories, so much fun. I don't know. It's probably sounds kind of weird, but it was a fun day, and I'll never forget. Yes, it's raining, and we're just starting to get on the trail, and those two guys come walking by with their cups of coffee, and we're just like, oh, look at them. They look so relaxed, and here we go, and it's just kind of drizzling down on us. Um, but and then, Christina's legs are bleeding, and so anytime she's ahead of me and I'm just like, "Oh, her poor legs, like, that has to be so painful." She has blisters, it's just yeah, just so fond memories, huge challenges. Um, for me, I think the mental side of it is more difficult than the physical side, um, because even when you are tired, you have to keep going. It's one foot in front of the other. It's listening to your body, resting when you need to, checking in with each other. I think we did a really great job of that on and in Oregon on day two, and I think that's probably part of the reason we were so, um, you know, successful that day and managing all the different situations by checking in with each other. But it's yeah, the mental side of it is challenging. I once had somebody tell me that I was determination personified, and for some reason that has always stuck with me because it was from a hiking trip, and it is just I don't know if I could put it into any other words because when you're exhausted and you're tired and you want to stop, but you need to keep going, especially if you're pushing against the end of the day and it's the sun's going down and you still got to get to your camp and set everything up.
Yeah. Thanks, Wendy. Yeah, I'm gonna echo the day 2 of Oregon. And just for people who are listening, like, I don't even know how to explain it properly, but it was there had been, like, a fire years before, and over time and, like, recently from when we were there, trees from that fire just had fallen, and so there were just hundreds or thousands, I don't even know, of just you would just look and it would just down tree after down tree after down tree, and then we were just having to climb over them, and they're like, I don't know, how tall off the ground? It was what do you guys think? Like 4 feet?
Over waist
Some
high.
5 feet?
If you think about they're above our waist and it was for
Yeah.
at least 11 miles. So
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, and it was just so and then we are all wearing our packs, and, if you haven't done one of these trips before, like, our packs are between, like, I don't know, like, probably around 35 pounds, 35 to 40 pounds-ish. And so you have a pack on, and you're climbing over these trees, um, and then, like someone said, we then through it because these trees were down, you couldn't see the trail, and there aren't, like, great markings on this specific trail, and so all of a sudden, we didn't see any more trail, and we didn't know where we were, and it just looked like miles and miles of nothing that looked familiar. So, yeah, day 2, I think that was probably the most physically demanding, and also one of the most rewarding days, like everybody has said, like, getting through that, you really kind of felt like, "I think I could do anything if I could do that." Um, we actually once we got home, we looked on the all trails, and there were comments from people at that same time that we were there that said that they couldn't even get through the trail because it was impassable, and we were like, "Not for us." So, and also that night, as they were saying, like, we were racing the sun, and you don't wanna be hiking when it's dark. I mean, there's bears and other animals out, and so you wanna be in your tent when it gets dark, and so we were racing, for that sun to set, and then when we finally got to our campsite, everybody I'm sure remembers, we hear this noise that sounds like a bear, and we're all thinking, "Great. After this long, hard day, we're gonna just now be eaten by a bear." But, luckily, I don't know, he was probably like a 21-year-old, all of a sudden out of nowhere comes up and asked if he could, uh, put his tent up by us, and we said, "Sure." And he ended up telling us that it was a nighthawk, right? And it's the sound was the wings as they, like, dive down from the sky. So we were very thankful to know that and to know that it wasn't a bear that was trying to get us, so
I guess
I guess on another note, our last year in San Juan Mountains, I think you probably all know what I'm talking about. The uphill, was that day 3? That was, like, uphill, 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 and then we got that really amazing view once we got up to the top,
The
right? Day 3?
11,000-foot climb.
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So I would say just since we all pretty much said day 2, I'll throw that one in there too because, I think each year has something that's physical that comes up. I guess I'll say on day 1 of Superior Hiking Trail, we had just gotten started, but it was kinda one of those we drove all day and then we started on the trail, so we again, we're kind of chasing the sun, to get to our tent, and I fell
Mhm.
very hard on my knee. And so I say that was pretty physically challenging for me, just that moment of, like, feeling like I really had thought, like, I had really done something bad to my knee and that I wasn't gonna be able to continue. Um, so I'll throw that one in there. That one was another kind of physically challenging part for me, so
Well, and I
okay.
think too with the San Juans, with the altitude, I
Mhm.
decided
Yes.
after that trip that my body doesn't need to be above 11,000 feet anymore. Um,
Yes.
but there were parts of that trip where, yeah, I just didn't feel super great because of the altitude, and that definitely affected the physical side of it too. I don't remember which day it was, but it was a harder day for me, and I hung back, and Christina walked with me for a long time that day. And I was so appreciative for you, Christina, because it helped me so much. But yeah, it was that part of that trip was hard.
Yeah, definitely. The altitude I can remember us all, like, realizing, like, our hearts were beating so fast, um, even when we didn't feel like we were, like, physically exerting ourselves as much as we had previously, but, um so, yeah. Anybody else have anything to share about that? No? Okay. So, our group is somewhat unique in that we are all women. It's definitely not the norm that we've seen on the trail. So what do you guys all think about what that means to have this experience with it being all women? Yeah, you're up, Jen.
So I had read the book Women Rowing North by Mary Pfeiffer shortly after it came out in 29. And there was this section in the book where she really focused on the importance of like maintaining friendships and having kind of a tribe. She talked about like these women that she met up with every year and they did this big camping trip. And I was like, oh my gosh, that would be so cool to have friends like that. Like I could only hope. Um, and one of the quotes I really liked from there are lucky women are connected to a rich web of friends. Those friends can be our emotional insurance policies. Um, and now I just really like think about that every time I'm talking about the group just because I feel like that's kind of what we have with this group. And I just feel so incredibly blessed to know and have these experiences with all of you.
Yes. I think we all agree to that, Jen. All right, Christina.
I was thinking about this. I love women. Like that's the easiest way to put it. And to be in a space with women as yourselves, like that are so we're also different, but um there's so many I could just go on and on about each of you and the things I've learned about you and the things I appreciate and enjoy. Um it also just kind of lets my nervous system reset in the sense of um and not that other people are bad or there's it's not a but I love that space. It's also like I think about mother nature and I just think about the nurturing feeling I get when we're on these trips and um in the sense of I can be real too. Like I can I can show my weakness or I can show my frustration or I also can try to figure out like how to handle if Faith is snoring again. No, she doesn't snore, I promise. But if like how that works or different things. So it helps me to navigate and then I look forward to it because honestly, we have such different like busy lives that you would think, "Oh, they hang out all the time." Um unfortunately, we don't get to. So these trips are that time, to really build a genuine, authentic connection, and to kind of process and reflect on things. So I look forward to that.
Yeah. Thanks, Christina. All right, Katie.
It truly means so much to me to do this with women. When I think about my identity, there's a lot of things that weave into what makes me me, but something that resonates really strongly is that sense of womanhood and the bond that I share with other women, and just how important that is to me on a daily basis. When I think of our group, again, we have such a rich diversity of personalities, histories, experiences. Um, when people think of women, a lot of times they think of us as the caregivers. And with reason, I do think we have a natural inclination to do that. And again, among this group, we have people who are caring for family, for community. We have people focused on education, on health, on basic needs. And while we all love doing that, and it is something that we feel lucky to do, it takes energy. And so I think that one of the things that's so rewarding about these trips is it's an opportunity for us to kind of care for ourselves by giving ourselves these experiences and this time with one another. Because I think we've all found something that we really enjoy and that really fills our cup and really helps energize us. And again, just the fact that we get to do it with all these fierce, bold, fantastic women, how lucky are we?
Yes, definitely. Okay, Wendy.
Well, I had a hard time putting it into words. So thank you all for doing it for me because I couldn't have said it better, than you guys have what you've talked about already. But just the appreciation for each other. And I look forward to connecting with each of you, um, every time we go. And, I wish we could get together, more often outside of the trips, but life doesn't always happen that way when you have so many other things going on with kids and everything else. But there's just a level of compassion and empathy there that I just don't think I you'd find elsewhere. And I'm just so grateful for everybody and connecting with all the women in our group.
Yeah, I agree. For me, I think it is such a cool experience that we are all women and doing things that women don't quote unquote usually do, and so I think that makes it really special is because, I know for myself, I am given opportunities on these trips to do things that, like, if my husband was on the trip with me, he would do certain things and I would do and so to have the experience that it's like I don't have that kind of safety net. It's like we're all doing all the things. I think it translates into life back home in such cool ways where it gives me so much more confidence in all the other areas of my life. Um, there's this piece to being self-reliant. I mean, obviously, we're reliant with each other in our group too. Um, but again, for it to be that female power, um, and we even get comments on the trail. It is not the norm that we see when we're out, and there is just a certain energy that it brings that I think is very unique and very, very cool. Not something that can be replicated easily, so I'm appreciative of you all. Question number 5 is, was there a moment that stands out to you where you felt especially supported or witnessed during our experiences? Starts with you, Jen.
So one piece, like, and I use the word victorious, was when I could blow my stinking whistle when I finally found the trail again. That day where we spent like an hour walking up and down the side of a mountain on day 2. Um, and to finally like blow it and have everyone uh yeah, I mean, that's probably a piece that stood out to me in memory.
Yeah. That was the best sound ever, is your whistle. All right, Christina, what about you?
Just thinking about that, there's so many moments that it's hard to capture it in one, but
Yeah.
I didn't add it to this intentionally. On the last day of our Oregon trip, we met up with those 2 guys, towards the end. They took our picture and stuff, and then they were like, "Oh, like, we got lost several times, like, on the trail," and we're like, "Oh, you did?" Like, but I was like, "Huh, we can do this," like, because we did get lost, but we actually navigated it better than and these were military men, if I remember correctly, and so I was
Yeah.
like I just thought that was great that I felt seen and supported, like, "You did this," you know? And I think that part of it, and just in different ways, and then this is funny, scene, so on our San Juan Huts trip, we were with other women, that didn't end up finishing the trip with us, but I love to read, and I also can't see if I don't have glasses, so I felt really seen and supported when one of the women gave me her glasses to use on the rest of the trip.
Good.
So I was like, "Oh, that was really nice." And then she actually sent me a book in the mail too. So, yeah. And again, all of you in each different ways made me feel seen and supported, and I could talk about it forever, but I won't. So I was like, I can give 15 examples of each of you, at different
Mm.
times and just knowing or like, hey, maybe, um, like you're like, when do you noticing that I was bleeding? Or when you all helped me on the last day with my feet, or um, telling me I didn't have to dig a 5 foot deep hole to put my poo in, like those kind of things, right? So I appreciate it all.
Mm, that's still one of my favorites.
Good memories. Um, Thinking about this, I feel like there were a couple things that popped up. We've already acknowledged the very steep climb in the San Juan Mountains. That was really difficult for me. And it's probably the stretch where I really had to just like stop and take breaks frequently. But at no point did anyone create a sense of urgency or that I needed to get my stuff together and get up the hill. You guys stopped with me. You said, take breaks. We will get there. And I think that is just one of many examples of the way we support ourselves on the trail. And it kind of gets me thinking about, sometimes I question, would I ever want a solo hike? And I think there's no doubt that I could, but I think it's the experiences like that that kind of solidify that I wouldn't want to. Um,
Mhm.
would it be a challenge? Would it be accomplishment? Absolutely. Uh, but it would be lacking. It would be missing what is such an important piece for me in having um, you ladies doing this with me. I think that we can all agree that we're so good at being there for one another at all moments. You know, when we are having low moments, we are there to offer encouragement and comfort, a healthy dose of humor. And then we're there to celebrate those highs that we all get to have together. So, so yeah, it's just an immense amount of support. Another example that I think about is just when we have to be so methodical in what we're planning and packing, because again, as we've mentioned, we want to keep that weight pretty low, especially on these long miles. And so you really want to make sure that you're packing things that really make sense and have purpose. And you hope that everything is working the way that you want it to. I think about when we were in Minnesota and I had brought the water purifier for Wendy and I to use. And it became very clear on the first day something was malfunctioning with it. There was a clog or some other issue with it. And if we wouldn't have had the rest of the group, that could have been a game changer right there. That would have been a get off the trail. If you can't have a way to have fresh water, you're not gonna make it very far. So, I think that there's just been so many times where someone has had something that has been of benefit to someone else in the group, that we would have maybe otherwise not have had access to if we weren't all together.
Yep. Thanks, Katie. Okay, Wendy.
There's been a lot of times where I felt supported, whether it's through different things that people were providing for each other, but something that really stands out to me was our last trip in the San Juans. And I did a lot of reflection on that trip. I feel like just maybe spending some time, quietly and listening to everybody, have conversation, talk about things. But it it was so helpful for me. And then I also felt very supported when I was ready to talk about that stuff with some of you guys on the trip. And that was kind of in a way, thinking back on it, I think a goal too that I had was just to connect with nature and see where that led me on that trip. And, being present in that, but also being open. Um, and, the physical side of that trip too, the altitude and the racing heart. No, I can't catch my breath, and just having faith reminding us, and okay, well, let's stop, let's slow down, catch your breath, and all of that was just so helpful too. So felt very supported in a number of different ways.
Yeah. Thanks, Wendy. I feel the same. There's probably a million examples I could give, but I'm going to talk about Superior Hiking Trail. It was the morning of day 2, right? It was our first night on trail. It was the morning after our first night on trail. And embarrassingly, I caught our jet boil on fire. It went up in flames, and it was a kind of a scary moment for me. I was screaming, and what was really sad is I was just trying to make my cup of coffee. And it's every 2 of us, like, so we usually have, like, 3 jet boils with us or 3 some kind of way to cook. And, so I pretty much ruined, Christina and I's, way to cook. And, where that could have easily, like, been a thing um, that you guys could have made me feel really bad about or, you know, shamed me in some way. Not that you would, but, it could have been, like, a frustration, but it ended up being something that was funny, and, like, Katie and Wendy had me come over, and they made me coffee with their jet boil, and I just think, like, that was one of my fears going into the whole, like, backpacking experience was just me feeling like I didn't know a lot of things, like, definitely the infancy thing of those experiences. You just have things happen and you don't ever have happen in your normal life, and you're just doing things in a way that it's just not intuitive, and, so for me to have something that felt like such a huge, like, mistake and to, like, it have been embraced with, like, care and love and humor, uh, that was very special to me. So thank you guys for not making me feel like an idiot. Our 6th question is, what have you been able to carry home from the trail into your everyday life? And I know we maybe have said a little bit, but maybe just like something specific that you have been able to take home with you. All right, Jen, get us started.
I said my appreciation for just shutting technology down. I feel like that kind of carries over, and I wish I could do it more when I am off trail. Um, and then my appreciation for fresh food. Just not like I think the first meal when you get off trail is like the best
Mhm.
meal ever every time. Like just yeah, anything fresh. So those are my standouts.
Uh-huh. Yeah. How about you, Christina?
Mm. Um, like my big thing I wanted to kind of let go, and it's something that I think about in every time I get off the trail, and it's just a reminder of like I don't want to participate in overconsumption in my life. And so I think that having everything you need on your back, like always is a good grounding and reminder to me. And also knowing I can create micro adventures for myself throughout my day um, by reflecting back on a butterfly on my finger on the trail or,
Mm.
different
Mhm.
experiences that I had.
Yeah, that butterfly was like your BFF.
We were tight. We were tight for that time.
And Christina, what about your love for ice? I feel like that you bring that home with you.
That's so funny because, as many of you may know too, that's kind of been a theme. Like when I went with my sister to Southeast Asia, I was like, I need ice as soon as we got back. So, um, but it's interesting since I've gotten iron infusions, I don't eat ice as much.
Oh, there might be something to that, lady. All right, Katie, what about you?
I would say one of the biggest things that I take every time we get off trail is just that reminder of the joy that can come with simplifying your life. It's really easy to get caught up in the daily distractions, problems that aren't problems, habits that are just time sucks, or even just like, unnecessary possessions. Um, I think preparing for a hike is such a good exercise in considering what's important. And again, talking about like, I only can take what I can carry. So what is that? And even though, when we get off trail, we're back to everyday life. It doesn't need to be that extreme. I think it's still just a really good practice of like, what am I carrying? Either, figuratively or literally that I just really don't need. Like what weight can I cut from life to maybe just simplify things and make things feel a little easier and more joyful.
Yeah. Thanks, Katie. All right. How about you, Wendy?
100%. I actually, when you first asked the question, I wrote something down quick and I seriously wrote, life is so much better when lived simply. So,
Mm,
yeah.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, I agree with that completely. There is something about just packing what you need and then looking around your house and being like, what else can I release and let go of? And then I would say like confidence. I think it's just when you know that you can do these things, for me, it shows up in so many other areas of my life that it feels like I can do uncomfortable things and I'm fine. You know, discomfort is not going to keep me from doing what I want in my everyday life. And the trail has helped to teach me that for sure. So, okay. The seventh question is: have these trips shifted how you care for yourself? All right, Jen, start us off here.
Um, so I think it gives me like more focus in my training, and I do a much better job now about taking care of aches and pains as they pop up, being mindful that I wouldn't want to be having issues with that when I get on trail. So I there was one point early on in my hiking where I had done something to my lower back and I let it go on for like 8 months and it took a long time to get better. So I don't allow that any longer. So I just do a better job of self-care, I'd say.
Hmm. Yeah. How about you, Christina?
I think it has shifted for I think about intentionally saying yes to things more than I ever have before. And those things usually involve nature now. So like it caused me to become a nature informed therapist to utilize nature in my work and in my teaching so that has definitely shifted, and it's also prompted me to go to, like, trainings that are focused on nature and different themes and do book clubs, like that. So, it's just become more nature focused.
Yeah. Thanks, Christina. Okay. How about you, Katie?
Well, my body's not getting any younger, but that doesn't mean it can't get stronger. And I really enjoy this so much that I want to be able to keep doing it. And so I think because of that, I've been a lot more mindful about caring for my body, listening to my body, and responding in kind. Uh, I really think it's important to dedicate the time to do things that excite you. And I have a high degree of kind of flying by the seat of my pants in life. But again, I think um, as I get older, I do try to be more thoughtful about how good preparation can really lend well to the success of these opportunities. And so I think uh, just devoting the time to be good to my body, but also um, be really good about your preparations. You can't plan for everything, but doing what you can certainly helps.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good, Katie. Thanks. All right. How about you, Wendy?
Definitely being more active. I mean, I'm a busybody. I'm a person that's always on the go, but I wasn't really intentional about it. And I feel like now it's a part of my routine. It's my life. But I think it also shifted to help me understand how much I needed nature and how much I felt like that was probably missing from my life. And being able to detach is part of that self care and getting connected outside.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Um, I think for me, it's the shift of me allowing myself to like be unavailable for others to get a hold of. Because I think I would have previously said that that would not be possible for me in my life to be somewhere that my kids couldn't reach me or my husband couldn't reach me or, like I would have been like, that's just not, that wouldn't work for me. And so for me to allow that to happen, it has shifted to know like how important it is for me to have those experiences that I am truly taking care of myself and like unplugging from the busyness and like plugging into the slowness of nature and the just presence of it. So I think that was a very big shift for me to make. So, and I love it. Okay, we're at our last question. Question number 8. If you could describe in one word or phrase, we're going to go through each of the 3 that we've done together. And so let's do Oregon first. What did Oregon teach you, Jen?
And I'm going back to kind of our slogans we adapted for each of the trails, right? So for Oregon, there was choose your adventure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. How about you, Christina, Oregon? What did it
Mhm.
teach you?
Um, the word rugged keeps coming to my mind. Like
Mm,
it's felt the most rugged, remote, and water. Because
mm,
the alpine, oh, I loved being able to be in water after hiking. That was my absolute favorite part.
yeah,
So rugged, remote, water.
I love it. Love it. Thanks, Christina. Okay, Katie, how about you?
I think Oregon taught me the rewards of saying yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, love it. Okay, Wendy, what about you?
Oregon taught me more about letting go.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, I would say Oregon taught me the beauty of surrendering to the trail. That was actually a mantra I said along the way is I surrender this trail to the universe and
I still
surrender.
use that. Yes, you said to surrender. Yeah, and I still use that to this day. Just surrender.
Mhm. Yep. Yep. I had to because it helped. Okay, let's go on to Minnesota. Jen, what did Minnesota teach you?
Um, Flexibility. uh, that trip did not go according to plan, but it was a welcome change. We ended up having a lot of really fun adventures because of that. So, yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Jen. All right, Christina, what about you? Minnesota, what did it teach you?
Detours welcome. Like I love that it didn't turn out as planned because I would think about it and I was like, I would have not known that there was a black sand beach. I wouldn't have got to see a wedding. Um, I wouldn't have gotten to cart camp. Like all these things. Um, when I tell people about and I feel like the detours were welcome because we got the remote camping the first 2 nights. Like, and I still got to experience that. And I got to see other things that like water again. Ooh, here's a theme. Water. I got to
wake up and see the sun rise over the water every day and see the sunset over Lake Superior, which is stunning.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks. How about you, Katie?
There's a trend here, ladies. When I think of Minnesota, I absolutely think be open to the reroute.
Yeah. How about you, Wendy?
Detours welcome. So that comes from what? The phrase on your shorts, Christina?
Yes,
So
that's
so,
right.
I mean, we had to be flexible, yes. Flexibility was learned in being adaptable differently, than what I thought that typically meant for me. But, yeah, I think we all noticed at some point, "Oh my gosh, your shorts say detours welcome." How ironic that that is what is like, that's it right there.
I had not even noticed the shorts. I thought that was just something everyone came up with.
Really?
Until this day, you didn't know that was on her shorts?
Yeah. For me, I think it's the same. Like, I don't know what else you could say other than, yeah, it was just learning that, like, things, and that's like a lot of what this podcast is about, right? It's like, what happens when things don't go as planned? How can you still love the experience even when that happens? And that was a perfect example of it. And like Christina said, we got to, instead of being on the kind of remote inside part of the trail, we were on the outside part, and we had our coffee every morning watching the sunrise over Lake Superior. And that was absolutely amazing. So, all right, last one. What did Colorado teach you, Jen?
I think Colorado more than any of the 3, like, the views were just so epic there. Um, and I tend to be one that's always like, "Okay, let's go." Like, let's kinda hurry to the next part, and it taught me to just kind of slow down and, like, really stop and appreciate it, and I was grateful that, our mileage was a little less on that trail, but it gave us time to, like, really relish the scenery and that downtime with one another.
Yeah. Yep. How about you, Christina?
Nature is in charge, is what it taught me.
Mm,
Not only I think I feel very lucky because like Jen said, very beautiful views, but that last day, nature was like, we were like, which way do we want to go? And nature's like, you're going to go this way because there's a thunderstorm. And then nature also, we were fortunate. We got off the trail before the fires really hit, but that impacted, right? So that again, nature is in charge.
yeah, definitely. What about you, Katie?
With Colorado being my third hike, I could tell that, I'm growing in my comfort. Comfort might not be the right word. My confidence in approaching trails. But I agree. My takeaway was respect the force of nature. I think we knew going into Colorado, there were going to be some new elements, namely elevation, but other considerations. I recall finding it really interesting, like, either the conversations that happened before we got on trail or just little signs that were those reminders that we needed to respect what we were doing. I recall when we were in Montrose at that gift shop, the clerk who overheard our plans, and she really questioned whether we understood the gravity of the challenge we were about to take on. And while, I appreciated that she wants people to take it seriously, I think we felt good about our preparations, but again, it was still just that people really wanted us to understand the challenges that come with this. I also think about the morning that we made it to Ouray, and we were waiting at the coffee shop to get our breakfast, and we just happened to be in line behind this guy who's wearing a T-shirt that was like search and rescue. And we turned to each other and we're like, well, we hope we don't need to see him again.
That's right.
Because no doubt people get themselves into situations that can be really risky and scary. And to the point of what Christina was saying, we knew there was heightened lightning risk, especially at that elevation. And the fact that that last day when we were the most exposed and we were asking for a sign, Mother Nature very much gave us a very clear sign about what we needed to do to just be safe for ourselves and successful for the trip. And as you mentioned, I mean, those lightning strikes did create some very large, long burning wildfires. And so just feeling very fortunate that we were able to do it, but remain safe while we were doing it. So I think it's just something that I will continue to take forward. I will have such excitement for whatever adventures we choose next, but it will also be with an element of respect for the environment and the terrain that we're venturing into.
Yeah, very true. How about you, Wendy?
The San Juans taught me to go for it. Just have fun, be adventurous. I remember we had just a couple stream crossings, and I think at first I was like trying to be strategic and using this rock and that rock. And as we're walking along, I was just like, what are you doing? Like, that is not you. That is not like how you approach things. And you need to get back to being the adventurous person that you are and just having fun and just going for it. And so I think the next couple crossings we came up to, I just went for it. And it's like, so what? Your shoes are wet, your socks are wet, deal with it. Anything, those things happen, you get blisters, you'll deal with it. So
Yeah,
that's what the San Juans taught me.
I like it. The San Juans, it was like nature and elements on all the trails we did, but I think that one specifically, because of the elevation, because of being in Colorado, like we saw evidence of a lot of wildlife. We saw remnants of the mountain lions. We saw lots of things with bears being around. There was that one like meadow area we were in, and it was like carcass after carcass of or skeleton after skeleton of different animals, and we were like, something happened here. I feel like that trail specifically was a really good reminder of the elements that that we are in somebody else's home, and to be very respectful of that. And so yeah, I think that was a big lesson for me, eye opening.
Yes,
So
the boneyard.
the boneyard, yeah. Yes, we actually would see, like, when you think of, like, a cat having a fur ball, but we would see those from mountain lions all along the trail, and there was, like, a day and a half that we could, like, smell a bear, the musky whatever, that we knew that there was probably one near. So, anyways, it was a cool thing, and also cool that we didn't actually, have to experience coming in head to head with any of those creatures. Okay, well, thank you guys so much. I am so honored to be in your backpacking group, and that you chose to come spend this time with me sharing on my podcast. So thank you so, so much. I really appreciate it. I look forward to our next adventure. Thank you so much for listening to the Love Your Real Life podcast. I hope that today's episode was just what you needed. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. And if you're looking for more support, check out the show notes for how to connect. Remember, no matter what your story holds, you are worthy of living a life that you love. Talk to you soon.